What's going on, guys? It's Mr. DEBT Joe Lorick from the Money Etiquette Group, and I want to talk about wartime investing. It's on everyone's mind. People want to know if we get into conflict with Iran, if it turns into a full-fledged war based on one of their top commanders being killed on the orders of President Trump. People want to know what should we do with our money? Where should we put it? And there are a lot of answers to this, but it really has to do with who you are inside and what you value and what your morals are, because there are going to be opportunities to invest in private defense companies, Halliburton and other companies that are tied to war that are very profitable during wartime. However, if you're doing that, it's almost like you're supporting killing, you're supporting war, you're supporting violence on a mass scale. I personally don't have the stomach to do that. It's just not in my moral compass to do so. But then there are other people who don't necessarily run towards that, but look to invest in resources and things that are scarce because they know that during times of conflict, especially when you're talking about the Middle East, oil is a big investment, but not necessarily oil in the Middle East. You look at alternatives to the Middle East, Nigerian oil, Ghanaian oil, just different places where oil can boom and certainly benefit, even in Kenya and different places, but oil can benefit outside of that immediate area due to the conflict, because obviously the price of oil is going to go up. Also, some people run to gold and silver. We know that's a classic move when it comes to times of conflict. People say gold and silver, and also cryptocurrency, because of how some currencies become unstable due to conflict. Some people run to crypto because they want to put their money in something that appreciates more often than not on a slower scale. And sometimes even if it's just a week or two on a short-term basis, people might put their money in crypto. But when it comes to wartime investing, again, I want to put this out here. Here's a list of companies that I won't be investing in. And I'm talking about companies that are tied to violence and war. It is a strategy. But again, guys, I just think that's nasty. I just can't get into that. If you are a person that wants to do that, that's on you. But these are companies, even when it's not wartime, I don't invest in. And then now that we're looking at a conflict, I really won't invest in. But some people, that's your choice if you want to do so. It's just not me. My focus is more on companies that, again, support the distribution and, of course, the manufacturing, the refining of oil and natural resources, gas. And I also pay attention to, again, gold, silver. And I also get into crypto. Those are the things that I focus on. I want to know what you focus on too. I know that's some of the things that I do, but I want to know what you focus on too. So make sure you add that to the comment section so you can let me know what your strategy is during wartime. But just keep in mind, guys, if you're going to be investing during wartime, a couple things that you might not want to lean towards: travel. You know, companies that support travel into international travel, especially airlines. You know, travel is a lot more limited when it comes to wartime, especially if it's a major conflict. So companies that are, and I'm talking about airlines and such, that are tied to travel and international travel, certainly that's going to be hindered. Also, just look at what exports come out of a certain area, you know, when it comes to trade. And it's not just exports and imports when you have relationships with the United States. I'm talking about sometimes different routes and different things get cut off to other countries outside of the United States. So let's just say Iran trades with Russia, trades with China. Some of that is impacted during wartime, and especially if this becomes a world war or a bigger conflict. I'm not saying it's going to become that, but it's something to keep your mind out for. Another industry that's impacted by conflict is tourism. You have a lot of countries that are starting to build their economy based on tourism, and tourism is going to drop significantly during wartime. So if you have an economy, even like a Dubai, you have certain countries that are very heavily dependent or started structuring their business and their economy to be based on travel and tourism. Understand that in certain areas in the world that tourism is limited. And if we go out into a full scale conflict and even war, that's going to limit it not just to one area, but when it comes to worldwide travel, you'll see a lot of restrictions and people won't be able to move as much. So tourism, travel is certainly an industry that you might want to avoid during wartime. Now, getting back to trade and what areas to avoid, agriculture when it comes to regional agriculture. So certain foods coming out of different areas where you depend on those exports, again, and being specific about the imports and exports out of a certain area. agriculture is one of the first areas that kind of get cut off. So when it comes to food exportation, it becomes more limited during wartime. So if your investment in agriculture is limited to certain areas, you might want to move your money to a safer place during wartime, because if any of those routes, those distribution routes, those transportation routes, and those export routes are disrupted, you're not going to be able to see that food go out and food goes bad. So agriculture is something that you definitely want to pay attention to when it comes to wartime, and seeing which areas are going to be able to import and export their normal foods versus not. Unfortunately for this, the side part of this is also, that means that some people unfortunately start to go hungry. That's another part of war that's just ugly, and conflict is that, because this is why we see during wartime people not able to get food as much, because when you start having trade limited due to conflict, people can't get the food that they need. So it's just something to put out there, something you want to avoid when it comes to investing or having your money sitting in certain places during wartime. And one last sector that you may not have thought would have been an issue when it comes to what happens during wartime, it's actually tech hardware. Okay, of course, we're not talking software. We're not talking about intellectual property. I'm talking about hardware. People don't realize how much goes into your computers, your laptops, your cell phones when it comes to getting pieces of hardware for those electronic devices. A lot of that is distributed throughout the world. And when you start cutting that trade off, or that becomes limited, then that slows down manufacturing. That slows down the ability to export and put these items out to market in its final form. So, and those costs go up too. So of course, if exporting certain goods or certain materials becomes more costly because of war or because of conflicts, understand that that's an industry you want to pay close attention to, because it does affect the tech company in that way. Again, not in coding, but in hardware. So those are my thoughts about wartime investing and moving your money into safe places. Again, we know the typical ones like gold and silver, crypto, oil. Those are typical ones. Some people will put their money into defense stocks. I'm not with that, because it, again, is almost like investing in war. It's just not for me. It may be for someone else. But also remember those ones to avoid. You don't want to deal a lot with import and exporting out of certain regions and areas, whether it's agriculture, whether it's tech, when it comes to hardware, and of course, tourism. Tourism drops, so transportation is affected. So those are some thoughts I have about investing and how to move your money and what's happening during wartime. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have videos talking about financial literacy. We're doing our 52-week investment challenge right now. I put up an update about that a few days ago about what I'm going to invest in. Certainly it is involved in oil, just to let you guys know, particularly though oil coming out of Nigeria and Ghana. But again, guys, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, check out the videos. We have everything about financial literacy, everything about just improving your life from a financial standpoint, and even from a just happiness standpoint. We want to make sure that people are able to get what they want out of life without losing everything and having to give up everything. So again, I appreciate your views. I appreciate your comments and your likes. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And please let me know what you think, because I want to really hear what you guys think about what to do during wartime when it comes to investing and it comes to maybe moving your money and keeping your money in safe havens.